There are many issues with the show, like garish colors, the really random, hurried nature of outer space last arc. But at the end of the day, it has like a special sentimental place in my heart. Hi, this is Juniper.
Hello, this is Elle.
Welcome to our pod. Today we're going to talk about the Chinese Xianxia drama Moonlight Mystique again. So we had previously talked about our sentiments about the show from, I think, episode 1 through 15. Now that we've both finished the show, we wanted to dedicate this time, hopefully not too much, though we have a lot to talk about, to the remainder of the show, right up to the end. So, Elle, I hear you were up all night.
Yes, I marathoned a lot to make it in time for our conversation, and it's very fresh in my mind. Actually, I didn't tell you this, but I realized probably 75% of the way in that if I had to use one word to describe the main couple, it would be schmaltzy. Do you know that word, schmaltzy?
But do you mean schmaltzy in the good or the bad way? Because schmaltzy could go either way.
Yes, in a good way. But it was like, they're very romantic, but like almost cheeseball, but not. And it was good.
They're the most normal, and normal in a good way. I mean this. Like I could just watch them all day, do nothing, because they felt very comfortable on screen for me. So I guess we're going right into the main CP, right?
Yes.
But
they're the main drivers.
Show is really, but the irony is that 80% of the show is actually not about them.
Correct. Yes.
So
I mean, I think in the first pod that we talked where we discussed the show, we really covered the first two arcs, and at the time, it wasn't clear yet what the future. We knew there would be at least 3 more arcs because each was it called contemplation that she had to collect for the divineless stone, the main character Bai Lu. Each arc was basically a story or plot line that had to happen before she could receive the contemplation. So we anticipated that, and I think the last 3 arcs, and we talked about the first 2 arcs. The first arc was like her in the city that she grew up in and things that happened to her father. The second arc, they ended up in this Fox clan where there was like a Romeo Juliet story that kind of happened in like not a time warp, but you call that hot tub time machine situation.
Romeo and Juliet, yes.
Yes. The third arc was... Wait, can you remind me what the third arc is? Because
it's the Fox clan, where unfortunately our adorable
present day
Fox
clan. Yes. So the Fox clan was in second and third arc. The first one was the past. The third arc was the present, where you kind of learn more about, because of what happened in the second arc, it kind of actually bled into the third arc, and so they affect the people in the present day. The fourth arc was the Stone Clan, I think.
And that was like murder mystery suspense, right? Like,
yes,
right. It felt very much like trying to unravel what's actually happening, and there's a killer or a serial killer on the prowl, and who do you really suspect, right? There's a few candidates. I thought they did that arc very well too. Like I said, the show has a different genre theme for each of the emotion arcs. And then the last one, Bodhi Village. Well, it's not the last arc, but it's the last of the contemplation stone arc, right? That they have to collect. That one is interesting because it's like doppelganger horror mystery with a tinge of Fatal Attraction.
I like that one the most.
Oh, interesting.
I like
okay, we'll have to talk about. So that maybe is a good segue into what's your favorite arc. But before we do that, there is one more arc, which is the finale arc, the God Realm arc, which I would term that as the most typical Xianxia arc of this whole story. Because everything else before it almost feels like an adventure quest, right? And they go through different genres. And it wasn't focused purely on the main couple. It was very much about all of these characters they encounter, who enter and exit their lives, and the very poignant stories around them, right?
Yeah.
The last arc was very much about the main couple, albeit it's not the present day versions necessarily of them. It's more like a previous incarnation of them. But it's the same two actors, so you're like, okay, you're projecting onto the fact that it's really just them. Playing out this very star-crossed lovers romance.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, I think, like the last arc the most because of the focus on the main characters. And because it's your typical Xianxia romance. It is a very good romance if you just looked at the romance story, right? It's just, it's very condensed into like 3 episodes for the romance part, which I thought was very refreshing because, my God, usually in a normal Xianxia, this would be 40 episodes of just that story, right?
Yes.
And people repeatedly dying, coming back. So I was like, thank God they could do this. Like, what I like about the show is that they told very tight stories. Maybe too tight. Very, very fast paced.
Maybe, even though it's fast paced, I would say, and you mentioned this before, like there's many deaths that happen. The death scenes are not rushed either. I mean, they managed to fit in like every character that you would want to care about got like their 5 minutes of screen time to like die and get the last word in and all of that.
I would say though the deaths felt a little bit rushed at the end. For somewhat of the more important characters, like the sister Bai Xi, right? Who, spoiler, is the bad girl Fu Ling, who was kidnapped as a child, right, and then became brainwashed, but she's really her older sister of the main lead, Bai Shuo, and her death was poignant, but it was very. I felt like by this time you're just like, okay, we know in the finale she's dying. Oh no, she died. Oh, cry, gone. And then one of my side characters that I really like, Tian Huo's death, was like last episode. I was like, oh come on, she could have survived this. You had to kill her, like, and it was so. It was a good death in that she died in the arms of what's his name, Fan Yue, right?
Yes.
And he was very, I have to say, Ruipeng cries very beautifully. Like that's all I can say. Like I've never thought of him as a crier because his other roles that I've seen him in are very doofusy. I have to say, the guy had to cry a lot, and well, he had to die a lot, and he had to cry a lot. Every time he cried, I was like, "Oh, poor baby." Like it wasn't like, "Oh, he's acting and he's crying." Like I felt like, "Oh, he's really like sad."
Yes. He actually looked like he was in real pain, and I felt that with Bai Lu too. But yes, both of them did it really well, like the emotional scenes.
Yes.
Where you really bought into like that they felt real pain in during these really sad moments.
Sorry, I got us off track. So I just wanted to go through all the arcs and then go back to the fact that your favorite arc is the Bodhi Village. So let's talk about your favorite arc.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you guys ask me why, I don't know why I like that. I think it was the first arc where it really centers on the main couple, because the previous arcs, like I said, had like these other characters that was focused on. I think this one was also the first one to bring all 4 main characters together, because previously everyone was kind of separated. And in this arc, they're forced to not cohabitate, but like to live in this village or this, like surreal place where they can't leave. They're kind of they're stuck there. So they're kind of like, and they're forced to interact too. And I think I liked the dynamic of seeing the 4 of them together. Which you didn't really see throughout most of it because they were all separated.
I like that too. Now that you reminded me, when I was watching it, it reminded me of the story Love, the segment with the 2 couples, the sisters, and their boyfriends or husbands, right, were living together in the little getaway too. It was like the happy times before the very end, like arc.
Yes,
this is kind of like that, except this has more suspense, like you said. I like that these people who were at odds throughout most of the show could put their differences aside the minute they recognized, like they were adults about it, basically.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And they acted very, what we liked, we said this in the first part, what we like is that people are very logical and normal. They'll get mad at stuff as you would expect, but they'll get over it and figure out, hey, maybe that's not right, and we need to talk through it. Like nobody just like persists in being pig-headed or, mad at people. And so you see that kind of play out in the Bodhi Village. What I also like about the Bodhi Village is that you basically, I think this is where you're going, you're seeing kind of like almost like a snapshot of what their married life could have been like if they were normal couples. Even though Bai Shuo's body got swapped, right? Snatched.
Yes.
But you
And
can
I was-
see, like they show you snippets of the fact that she and Fan Yue are at least like they sleep in the same bed. Which, by the way, they rarely show in these type of shows, right? Like, yeah, they got together in episode 27 at the end when people were like, "Oh, did they just get together? What's happening here? What's
Look,
the symbolism?"
I must mention this. Okay, I know, and we know we should always start off saying there's spoilers throughout, but like the two times I feel they hinted a consummation, there's like stars or something dripping down from the moon. Like, you know that CG effect they do where like things are going up and then going down?
This imagery was very, very in your face, and you're like, what? Did they just go? I mean, this director does this in every show, right? Starry Love and Ashes of Love. But I feel like in those other two, they were much more symbolic. This time it's like literal. You're like, did he just?
They spent all their CG budget on that moon with the waterfall of cascading stars, and I was like, okay, I get it. I understand what's happening.
Wait, you said two times? Is the second time at the very end?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the second time.
So I thought that was interesting because I was like, why would they consummate at the very end when he just came back? So I don't know. That was interesting. but yes.
I feel like that was deliberately like, okay, here's a second time.
I guess she hadn't had sex for 100 years or 50 years, so it's like, oh, you're back and you're real. Let's go do it. But anyways, we digress. So Bodhi Village, right? So you see snippets of the mostly happy life. What I also liked is that you saw kind of like Fan Yue. I mean, you already knew he's kind of like the wit puppy, right? But he was like the good little husband in that village. Did you notice that? Like, if you read online comments, I was on like Redno, right? And people are like, oh, the goddess is stupid because she totally misestimated Fan Yue's position in his own family, in his own household, right? Because when she took over Bai Shuo's body, she's all like, oh, honey, let me undress, like, let me change your clothes for you. Here, have a seat. I made food for you, and let me give you a massage. And he's like, what is going on? Like, what's wrong with my wife?
He's like, you're not her.
She's not this nice to me, right? Like, I thought that was hilarious.
Oh,
before she
go sorry. I was gonna say that the woman who swapped bodies with Bai Lu's character, the Lotus spirit or soul, Lotus soul or whatever, I think the character is very interesting. Like, if she wasn't a villain, because it was interesting when she told him with Fan Yue, like, oh, this was our relationship in the past, and then you realize later on it was all like projection. Like, she was never like his partner.
She's a stalker.
She was
didn't
like
know
just
she existed.
No, she was just a spirit that like was formed from a lotus flower, and she observed everything, but then she like spent the last 60,000 years believing it was her. I thought that was fascinating on a psychological level. I mean, I think they just wanted to use it to show you that she was crazy, but like it was interesting because she built this whole village around that idea. So, anyways, I'm going a side note, but I thought it was an interesting character because she was important later on because you realize she was like the mole or the spy for the villain, and that's how he was sort of,
Was she really delusional? It was interesting because people are like, you saw in the last arc that he fed his own blood to the lotus to make it grow faster. So they
don't explain why he wanted to cultivate it though.
No, she's a healing flower.
Oh,
lotus,
okay.
Right?
So
remember?
Yes.
And he wanted to heal his love, right? And people are like, so isn't she essentially his daughter? Because it's his blood that fed her.
She said that to the fake turtle, the turtle master, like the tortoise or
the puppet.
Yeah. She told him like he's the reason I exist. Like she said that. Yeah. So I actually like that. Okay, like I know I'm jumping around, but like logically, everything makes sense in the show, like from beginning to end. Like they put in like all these little Easter eggs in their conversations. If you don't pay attention, you miss it. But if you think back, you're like, wait, they alluded to it. They were very clear, like this was their relationship. But you don't understand it sometimes because it's a little cryptic. But that's what I also enjoyed about it, the way they mastered it in a way where it's like, oh yeah, you can start tying everything together.
Yes.
So in terms of like the last arc, so the god arc, I enjoyed it, but like I said, I think the Bodhi one was the most compelling for me in terms of the main characters. I think the last arc, I mean, like I said, I was marathoning. I fell asleep in a few times because I was so tired. But then I rewatched it. I'm like, oh, what's happening? What's happening? And I had to go back. And I think they try to justify this sort of reincarnation story that you saw in the bulk of the drama, because every one of them had a very significant role, including the sister, right? So I kind of guessed before they revealed it. I probably guessed about 5 episodes before that she would be the bow, the magical whatever bow.
Really? You guessed that? How did you guess that?
Well, okay, so so in the very, very beginning, I did. So I remember when we talked in pod 1 about this, I said, "Oh, the sister hasn't been revealed," and then like 3 episodes later, they revealed it, right after we recorded that pod, and I was like, "Okay, there's no way they're gonna. There's gonna be there's gonna be something else." Like I just kind of like. I was like, there's not going to be new actors or actresses that they're going to introduce later on.
That's true. So, it's like a process of elimination. You're like, given the usual suspects available, who could be?
Yes. So and then I was like, okay, so I knew the Steamboat Boy would be the villain. Like I was like, okay, they alluded to that twice, like with the little mark on his on the forehead. So then I was like, they mentioned like later on at least 2 times that the snake guy, the evil snake guy, tried to strike the sister. She didn't die. I was like, oh, but they were like, she doesn't have any powers, right? They were like, she doesn't have powers. So I was like, she must be the bow. Like that was my thinking. But I started to watch it to see if that would happen.
You are smart. I never guessed that without seeing. I mean, I couldn't help but see spoilers, right? And I'm not skittish about spoilers. I welcome them, so that's how I knew. But it was still interesting to find out that she was the bull at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then
she was always there to protect her.
Yeah, and she had to die in order to release the power of the bull, so that the main character can use it to kill Chong Zhao. What was interesting was also, usually when you see Xianxia of this, where there's reincarnation or they're like god mantles, right? Basically incarnations of former gods. It's implied that they're the same person. But in this show, they don't do that, which is very interesting. They're like, I'm me and you're you, right?
Yes.
Which I was like, how do you explain that? Because they technically are the same person. They're just different incarnations.
I don't know, because they also explain that just because they see the memories, it didn't mean that it was their experience. It's like watching TV, right? I feel like it's like which they literally do. They show a screen in the sky. Watching it, right?
Yes, in the outer space arc. I was like, they're in outer space and watching a big screen TV.
Yeah, like it's not just them telling the story; they're actually visually watching it happen, and I think that's where not disconnect, but that's where the separation comes. I feel like you're like, okay, I see that happening, but that's not my experience. Like I don't store that as my own memory. It's just a story that I'm hearing, and you're telling me, oh, that's who I was 60,000 years ago. And I think they keep mentioning that you carry the mantle, right? They say like you're carrying the mantle. They're not saying that you are that person coming back. I mean, it just happens that they look like their former versions, I guess. Like and they even say with the Steamboat Boy, like he could come back in a different vessel. Like they did say that. So like he might not come back as him looking like he did 60,000 years ago. So we could argue it's just for convenience because you don't want to see a whole different cast of people for 2-3 episodes, like playing out the gods. So
speaking of the god arc, right? I actually thought it would have been interesting if they had more episode counts to see the dynamic, which they didn't play very much. They played it for like 2 seconds of when Fan Yue died the first time, because poor Fan Yue got killed. I felt bad because I felt like at the end it was getting ridiculous how often he had to die.
Yes.
But what I realized is also because it's unfair, because technically Fan Yue only died twice. And so the Jing Yuan died twice. But because it's the same actor and it's all happening in the span of the last 6 episodes or so, you felt like he died 5 times, right? When it's really 5 or 6 times, when it's really 2 different versions of him that died. Still, that's a lot of dying. Anyways, I digress. I thought it would have been interesting to see more of the dynamic between the mismatched lovers. So you know how like Jing Yuan came back and basically saved Bai Shuo from being the good guys, right?
Yeah.
But he wanted her to be his love, the goddess from 60,000, right? Xing Yue. She wanted him to be Fan Yue, but he wasn't. So it was very interesting, and they only played it for like 2 seconds when she woke up, right, from being fainting or something, and they called each other's names, but it was the wrong name.
Yeah.
And then you could tell, and she even said that, she's like, I'm not that person, and you haven't noticed this yourself, but you haven't called me by her name since that first time. And it would have been interesting to see kind of that there's a whole nother story there potentially, right, between two people who are like different versions of themselves, who are just frustrated and not being able to be with the one. But they didn't go down that route.
Do you remember Lost Romance, the Taiwanese drama?
Yes.
We've talked about it. It's the same thing.
At the end. Yes, when she was like, "You're not him." I loved the version of him in the book
version. Yes.
And we like that. We really like that dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, the way they got around that one was he eventually merged the two identities. Like he's saying they're both him. It's just that it was compartmentalized for him. Whereas in this version, they kept it separate the entire time. So he it was Jing Yuan, like he left his powers to Fan Yue, but then his spirit left to go look for the Xing Yue. Is that how you say her name?
Xing Yue,
the goddess.
Which he realized she was dead, but for the last 60,000. And people are like, wow, he's really like Lian now, meaning he's like a real true romantic, right? Like he split his soul in two to look for her because he couldn't let go. But then once you got to the actual God arc where they revisited the story, you're like, oh, really? He is a real lovesick puppy, which is really sweet, actually. I was like, oh.
Yes. He's actually quite different from Fan Yue. Yeah.
Right. So,
I actually enjoyed how they played different characters because there are these not doppelgangers. They're not doppelgangers, but like these different incarnations. I did enjoy it. Like even with the steam bun boy who turns into a villain. Like there's a scene where he plays against himself as the two characters. And they felt like two different people for me. Like even though I know it's the same actor, I was like, wow, I'm actually convinced it's like watching twin boys acting. Like to not feel like one guy, you know what I'm saying?
We should spend some time. I know we're all over the place. So whoever's like listening to this, I know we're all over the place. We kind of went randomly across arcs, but let's pivot and talk a little bit or a bit about the acting and their different characters, because I feel like, so let me just say this. I said this on the first pod. I said if this show persists at this level for me, it would be my top Xianxia of all time. Now that I finished, it is my top Xianxia of all time. And I texted this to you. I said, it's my favorite Xianxia. It's not the best Xianxia, objectively speaking, I'm sure. Do I know what is objectively the best Xianxia? I actually don't know. Because there are many issues with the show. Like, I would say, the garish colors, productions, the storytelling is really good. The really random, hurried nature of outer space last arc, right? And the multiple deaths. But at the end of the day, it has like a special sentimental place in my heart because it was so entertaining. And we kind of touched upon it earlier. I really enjoyed the actors. I mean, I'm now a fan of Ruipeng, and I didn't have a very good, I shouldn't say good, a strong impression. I mean, he's always been like, oh, he seems like a nice guy, but he has like so few shows. I was never gonna be like, oh wow, I'm gonna go watch like all the Ruipeng shows, right? There's only like a handful.
Yeah.
After this, I'm like, I really hope he hits it big, because I actually really want him to have more starring roles. The only problem is I think he should, right? If you saw him,
I was gonna say, which he should.
Like, but that's not how necessarily the entertainment industry works. But we can talk about that. So I need to take a break. Let's come back and let's talk about the acting, the characters, versions of the characters, and the impact it has on the show. Because to me, I think the actors did the heavy lifting. No, it's a good script, but the actors and the characterizations did the heavy lifting that makes the show just above and beyond for me. So why don't we focus on, since there's so many characters, why don't we try to keep it simple, hopefully, by focusing on the main 4 leads. Starting with Bai Lu, who plays our heroine, Bai Shuo.
Yeah, so I mean, we talked about in the other podcast that this one changed your mind because for the longest time you were not a fan of her acting. And it wasn't that she was a bad actress. I think she just didn't rub you the right way because of how she characterized them. And I think we both agreed in this particular drama, like the way she played the role fits with her style of acting. I don't know, even we don't know her real personality, but like assuming that she pulls in some of her own personality, like this character was really actually quite perfect for her because it's that combination of tomboy and in the beginning she comes out very brash and arrogant, and it works because she's like this person who doesn't take no for an answer, a very rebellious type. And then over time her story is that she has to kind of grow and into her destiny. And they even mentioned that at the very, very end in the last episode when she meets that
heaven, the will of heaven, 天道.
Right, like like she's like, why didn't you just help me, or why didn't you tell, like what Bai Lu's character is like, why didn't you help me? Why didn't you just help me solve some of these problems or guide me or even tell me what is happening? And she's like, well, you have to go through that growth and the experience before you can reach almost like enlightenment. Like, to me, there was also a lot of Buddhism references, like maybe not like literal Buddhism, but the themes thematically felt very Buddhist to me. And so like when she gets to that conversation where she's like, you needed the growth, I feel like even if you're watching her as an actress, like the character, like you appreciate the growth because her character does evolve, and she's not like she's not the same character she was in the beginning of the drama. So I think you also
mentioned earlier when we were talking about the crying scenes that you thought they both emote the main characters, right? Fan Yue, so Ruipeng and Bai Lu playing Bai Shuo both emoted. I forget if we talked about on the air, on the pod, or offline, but you had mentioned that you thought they both emoted very well. I mean, I already said, right? Ruipeng cries beautifully, and I was like, never thought I'd like seeing a guy cry so much. I think she had to emote quite a bit since her man kept dying on her at the end. I don't think I love the way Bai Lu cries, but definitely I could feel the couple of them, or the chemistry between the two leads were really good, I thought. And I think that's really brought the show up a level. And I don't know if that's acting or just because, like I said, I think we even talked about this in the first pod. I think they have really great real life chemistry, like well-matched energy, and it shows. And Bai Lu even said this. She said she really enjoyed acting opposite Ruipeng, because she says that, as goofy as he is, like he's joking with you like 1 minute, but the next minute, she said in interviews, like he's just in character, and you get sucked in really easily because of that. So I think that maybe helps. I felt she played Bai Shuo better than she did Xing Yue, but I think that might be because Xing Yue is such a hard to decipher character. Xing Yue, the goddess, right? She's this aloof, cold veneer.
Yes.
By the way, total.
Well, she's not allowed to love. Well, not allowed to love, especially people who are not in her.
Yeah.
Not like a deity, I guess, or like if they're part of the demon realm or whatever. Yeah.
So I thought she did a very good job, and I felt her sadness at the end when she was all by herself. I mean, it's a very sad story if you think about it. If they didn't, some people were not actually happy with the happy ending because they're like, oh, it should have just ended sad because that's how it really logically would have concluded. I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, it wasn't fair to the characters, right? But anyways, I digress. I thought it was very well done when you saw her kind of being this kind of like at peace with the way fate treated her life at the end, because she was by herself probably for 50 or 100 years at the end, right? Because Fan Yue had died. He sacrificed himself again to save the world. And when he came back, I thought it was very interesting because people were like, oh, she has PTSD, right? Because the whole, is that the wind? Are you going to get blown away again? Because you get the sense she's seen this so many times in her head that her lover has come back, but only it was a figment of her imagination. So she's really afraid to reconcile with the reality that he's actually back. So I thought she did that pretty well. And then, go ahead. You were about to say something.
Well, I was gonna say that the other emotional scenes where she really had to emote, like when her turtle master died, when her dad died, when her sister died. I felt every moment. Like the master one, I think hit me harder. And I don't know why, because he's sort of a goofy character and he's not meant to be,
Died with a smile on. He's like,
yes,
I told you, student, you come into life with nothing, you leave with nothing. And I was like, that's actually really true. This is probably what you meant by the Buddhist
it's very true.
undertones, right?
Yes,
and this is
yes.
something that's something we talked about before where I said, hey, in some ways this show's all about love and the different forms of love and loss. And I felt like they did a better job to more justice to really relate the themes of love and how it manifests in life than, say, love gaming Eastern fantasy, which drummed up a lot of hubbub about God knows what, and then it was like, oh, but that was all just for show. Right? Like, let me make a big fuss about it, but it was very almost like you're just paying lip service to it, versus in this one I was like, no, you cared every time someone died. You cared every time someone had to make a tough choice, and they always had to make a tough choice. Remember I said that in the first pod? I said, actually, a lot of the themes in the show are about love and loss. And loss again. How many times did Fan Yue have to lose his family? He lost his brother twice, if you think about it. Right?
Yes.
He lost his grandfather twice, too, because he would see them again, but they had to go. And then Bai Shuo had to lose Fan Yue like 2.5 times or 3 times, right? Like it was a lot of losing people. Oh, she lost Bai Xi twice, her sister. Chong Zhao lost his parents, and then he was reunited with the fake versions. They didn't play that as heavily as they could have. They could have gone even further, but there's like a very obvious undertone of pathos there, right? Where he's like, you could tell.
Well, the way I interpreted that whole segment was that he was happy, but he also had suspicions, and I think it was more about closure at this point because he never got to say goodbye, or like the fact that he interacted with the puppet versions, and he's like they don't ask me about how I am, how did I live these last 10 years, like they didn't ask me anything about me, and I think that made it less of a loss because he realizes they're not really his parents. Like, they're just images of them. So he got to, like, sort of bathe in their attention and love for a very short time that they were in the Bodhi Village. But it wasn't like, oh my God, this is the real thing and I have to say goodbye to you. Like, it's like, oh, you were just like a fake version.
It softened the landing, but it was still, right, it's a visual reminder of your parents. Like, you haven't seen your parents in 10 years, and suddenly there they are, seemingly healthy, and then it turns out they're not real, and they're, they've been dead forever, and... Anyways, I digress. So that's Bai Lu, right? We think she did a really good job and justice to her role. So then let's transition to Ruipeng and his multifaceted... I don't know how many characters... I remember I said I don't know how many characters you account him as. I don't know.
Well, I mean, he was the goofball in the beginning of time, right? 60,000 years ago. Not goofball, but like sort of like a puppy dog. Like you and I characterize it as like he's very eager. Like he already has a crush on the goddess, and he just wants to hang around. Funny because he's like, I just want to watch her. Remember, like the other guy was like, get out of here. He's like, no, I'm not disturbing her. I'm just gonna sit here and watch her.
Although that was one of my favorite segments before it got sad, right? Like the happy times before the sad you knew was coming. I thought that was very cute. Like that could have been a whole schoolyard romance right there.
Yeah, and it's funny because she acts so old, even though like reality they're only like a year apart or so. But like she acts like so old against like this child, like not child, but like like it's like a teen crush, right? He has on her, and then. Like, by the time you meet him in the beginning, when he's Fan Yue, like... I mean, I told you, right? I didn't really notice him in the beginning, because I'm like, oh, is he, like, just, like, this cranky villain? Like, that's how he came off. That's because he was dying and desperate and was looking for a cure. And, but his hero arc develops over time. Like first of all, just sort of flipping or subverting the concept of him as a demon lord. Like he's a demon lord, but not the evil kind that's out to just cause evil. Like he's the type where he just protects his people who happen to be demons. And the real villain is like this third concept, which I've never seen in Xianxia, but I don't watch a lot, with like they call it hidden, translate as hidden power, like where it's true evil, like just killing without abandon, or without abandon.
It's like dark matter. Well, they kind of had that concept in Talanjue, right? The evil lord trying to come back, the ancient evil lord. The same thing. It's a symbolic symbolism for darkness of the heart or something, I think. Yeah, we were talking about Arifan and then the character of Fan Yue. So I loved all his incarnations. I have to say, I think I said this to you offline. On paper, the role of Fan Yue is kind of thankless, right? He's second fiddle, and a lot of times he's just there as the man in her life who saves her. In fact, over time he becomes less strong because he's dying, and they keep meeting people, and he keeps getting injured, so he's always losing. But I don't know, like I can't think of many other actors other than, so I was like, remember I said I don't know how Ruipeng got this role, but I'm so glad he did, because he did such a good job convincing me of their compatibility and why they love each other, even though there's not that much show of them being in love and getting together throughout most of the show until the very end. But you bought into it, and part of it is, I think, there's just really good chemistry between him and Bai Lu. And he comes across as a very sensitive man boy, right? Like it's like the perfect balance between like this, like you said, puppy dog version, who you can like, you're like, oh, he's whipped for her, whatever version of him and whatever version of her. But at the same time, you also still believe he's actually still a very powerful demon lord. He just chooses to be whipped for the woman he loves, right? And I'm like, that's really cool.
Right.
Like I could watch this all day. I don't care if they're just like background characters, right, for a lot of the arcs, because you like bought into every hug they had, and we said there's so much hugging, there's so much kissing, but it came off so naturally. And so a lot of these kisses and hugs are different actually every time because of the context in which it's happening.
Yes.
And they made it work every time. So is that good acting, or they just really lucked out with the casting? I don't know, right? But like I'm just like, oh, I want to see more of Ruipeng in other shows, just because I want to see what range he has. Like I said, the one that he has with Landy Lee coming up, I'm kind of excited to see that, because I don't know, it could be another really cool character.
Yeah.
I want to see more of him playing these like kind of boyish male leads. It's very charming the way he does it.
Even though he's older.
He does not seem older. That's the funny thing. I mean, look, 29 is not older. Not compared to us, okay?
I mean, he's almost 29. No, 29 is not old, but for boyish. Considering how they cast like Chen Xingyu, right, who's younger, but he's always playing like guys that.
Well, Chen Xingyu is younger than everyone, but just looks older than everyone.
It does.
Yes. I mean, I don't know if he can transition. I think he actually can transition into older roles, because like I said, I watched one of his older shows, Poison Love, and he's like the CEO. He's a young CEO. I think he can do it. We'll just see, right? Because when his character, the god character Jing Yuan, came into the frame initially, before you kind of knew his backstory, he had more gravitas to him, if that made sense, right? Before you saw his like.
Yes, until you realize he's not
he's
that
just
scary.
purple. So yeah. Anyways, so let's see who else. The other two characters, main leads, right? So who do you want to talk about? Steamboat Boy, Chong Zhao, or Dai Luwa, who is
I'll talk about the Steamboat Boy first. Okay, so I really enjoyed his character in this. It was funny because in the beginning, I think I told you in the other pod that I actually felt a disconnect between him and Bai Lu, because his character is supposed to be really in love with her, or he's ready to marry her, right? And naturally reveal later on why, which I thought was the sweetest story, by the way.
I like how they closed that loop. It wasn't just like, usually they just say, oh, second male lead obviously loves a female
there was
lead.
A reason.
There's a reason. And when he realized the mistake, he was like, oh, okay, maybe I don't like, you know what I mean? It's a misprojected love.
Yes. Yes. So in the beginning, I was like, oh, like I don't know, I don't buy that he's a second male lead, and I was like, oh, he got paired off with someone else, right? So it was like a non-sequitur kind of thing. But then when they revealed that when he was a child, so someone he was like I guess not very happy, and someone would deliver these little handwritten messages to cheer him up, and they're very nice messages, and he actually saved them in a box, and he thought the whole time that they were from Bai Lu's character, and he realized later on that was actually the Bai Xi, the oldest sister, because he had confused the handwriting and like a satchel that he thought one of the sisters carried. So I love that they addressed that, because he wasn't just blindly like, oh, her dad wanted him to marry her, and therefore I'm gonna marry her. Like, it wasn't like that. It was like he actually had like a reason of like wanting this relationship to work. And it was such a stark contrast to the God version of them, where that guy was like, I don't even care that you're not her. You have her face, so I'm forcing you to marry me, and I'm waited 60,000 years for you to marry me. And he was going to force the wedding. It was such a huge contrast between the same two people playing two different couples. And I really I felt like they did his character justice as well, like because he could have been just like a off the throwaway character. He could have been like, oh, he was an eternal, and now he went, he has demon power in him, so he's evil, whatever. Like, they could have just completely trashed the character, but they consistently made him as upright as he wants to be, and
I was
brought up to
surprised.
be. Like, he
didn't turn evil.
he didn't give up he didn't give up on Bai Xi. Like, he wanted to help her no matter what, even before he knew her real identity. And like, he's like in some ways more of that hero character than the main guy. Yes. In some ways, if the main guy, like you said, he had a destiny, but like the Steam Boy's character, he didn't have a designated destiny that you saw coming. You thought he was just like a throwaway. You didn't know he was going to be the arch villain.
Well, he didn't know.
End.
And he's like, I don't want the job. I don't want the job.
He didn't know either. Yeah. So I actually felt like his character for me was more memorable than the male lead. For me, I mean, I think they're very different deliveries anyways, and the storylines are different, but I think you would not think of him as just a second male lead. Like, if this was a character that was written as the male lead and didn't have the first CP there, I could buy it as the main storyline. Like, the heft of his character growth could be the main story.
Oh, there's so many different stories in this story, right? That's the thing. It's almost two-packed with interesting characters and storylines. And they had to rush through all of it, but they still made it work, right? Like, I think that's so a lot of people, like I said, I think I said to you offline, complained that the script did nasty to the main characters because they were NPCs for most of the show, and I was like, well, no, not really. They're the canvas by which all of the other they're the witnesses for us of everyone else's love and loss and pain, but it also ties neatly together to them. But I know what you're saying. Like, Fan Yue as a male lead, like I said, it could be a very thankless role. It's just that because he comes across so sensitive and so good looking too, that you like him no matter what. And the chemistry is just like, busting off the screen. Whereas Chong Zhao and Bai Xi are more of a traditional pairing of hero and... I mean, it's a very salacious story if you think about it, right? An evil girl technically forces his hand. She basically kidnapped him and forced him to be in cahoots with her. Like, she made him kill all those people.
Yeah.
Remember? I mean, she loved being that person. And there's like a twisted love there that could have gone off the rails, but there are people who like that too, which is nice, right?
Yes.
If you like that, they did go there, but then they reined it back into a sweet romance at the end. Did they kiss? Did they kiss? They kissed once, I think, when she was leaving.
At the very end. At the very, very... Yeah.
It was an awkward kiss, though. It was an awkward kiss. They allowed
one. It was not as passionate as the main CP.
Well, especially since the main CP kissed so many times and so well, you're just like, huh. I mean, at first I thought their kissing was gonna be like fish face
like...
kiss, right? Because the first time Moo kissed her, it was a very innocent kiss. It was like I'm gonna say goodbye to you now in case I don't come back. So it was a child kissing the girl he likes, basically, that he knows is not with him. But then after they started real kissing, I was like, oh, okay, it's not gonna be fish face kiss, thank God. Fish lips kiss. I'm sorry, I put fish face. They really kissed. It was like there was no like doubt they were kissing. I was like, oh, they went there.
Yeah.
So okay, so
yep.
Dai Luwa.
No, anyways, so I think that, you know, leading up to sort of his chemistry with her, I also bought into that.
Which one? Hold on.
Too. Like I mean,
okay.
The second CP. The second CP. Because, you know, when she starts, right? Like she's a ruthless killer, right? She's fully believing that she's a demon, and she just delivers on whatever mission or, you know, ask that the evil guy sends her on. And I think for her character growth to transition from that awful, ruthless person to actually being someone that you feel some compassion for, despite the, you know, the body counts, I think says a lot about both the script and the actress, because I feel like it takes a certain kind of actress to gain your empathy back after she plays this ruthless character.
She is very pretty.
Yeah.
You don't feel like she's forcing it.
No, she's really, I think it helps that she's pretty, but it's also like the sort of vulnerability that she has is very believable, and I think that helps her a lot. Like, because the only time I've ever seen this actress was in Lost You Forever, and she plays sort of a completely different character, right? She was like kind of bratty in the beginning, very sheltered, very princess syndrome type, and here she's very tough as nails.
She's sexy.
Yes.
She's very sexy.
Yes.
Which is hard to find, by the way. So this show has some of the most sexiest characters I've seen in a Chinese drama. Can I just say that? You don't actually usually think of Chinese show characters as sexy. Can I just say that? I don't mean that as any, you know, derision. It just usually romance is treated so, and characters are treated so, especially in costume dramas, so pure or vanilla. Does that make sense? Like, love is a very like precious thing, and, you know, physical touch. They were like, no, these are adults. I mean, take all the costumes aside, these are modern people who have healthy sex lives.
Yeah.
Like, very passionate. Does that make sense? Like, they know who they are, that in that way, romantically speaking.
No, I know what you mean.
And they show it.
No, I agree. I think they're all very mature. Like, considering the age that they're supposed to be, they're very mature, and like both couples are believable, and I like both couples. Like, I don't feel like one is better or worse than the other. They just had different journeys that they traveled, and I liked all of them.
So we like Dai Luwa. I think I mean, honestly, you could put all these four people in a different story and make it like. Remember I said before, like, I will pay for a rom-com between Bai Lu and Ruipeng, but let's put the other two couples in it. It'd be like kitty funny.
No, I would like to see all four of them in the same drama. I mean, you know, it's funny because we felt the same way after we watched Love Game and Eastern Fantasy, right? Like, a lot of people ship the four actors and actresses, and they did actually a lot of variety shows and a lot of fan service. Like, I haven't been following these four.
They're not doing as many because I don't know if this is true, but the rumor on the internet is that they were suppressing popularity for the show. Like, she was not allowed to publicly say the show's name on Weibo Night or something like that, because I don't know, because they didn't want the show to do well.
Really?
I know.
That's so odd.
If you look at it, the show it did well, but didn't do as well as you would think it could have. But at the same time, I think it did as well as it could, which is fine with me, because I think, you know, it didn't like bomb, right? It's not like, unfortunately, like Snowy Night, Timeless Love, which was like anyone other than you and me watch it.
I know.
Speaking of which, this does make me look forward to her next show with Joseph Chen, because I do like Joseph Chen, right? But that one looks more like a typical
we were a little worried. We were a little worried that
We'll
it might not
see.
work out. Yeah, but we'll see. Yeah,
That one looks like it's
worth
got more
checking
till
out
the end
now.
of the moon vibes. Like there's a lot of him being stabbed in the heart by her, him stabbing her, lots of hate. Which I'm like, oh no, we're going there.
You know, I mean, even in this drama, there was actually a lot more blood spewing than expected, but it was like very artfully done where it doesn't get on their clothes. Like it's always like a gulp of blood. Like
Who's
it
blood all
comes
the
out
time other than Fan
and
Yue?
you're like,
Fan Yue was like the punching bag.
well, yeah, no, all four leads I felt like had to like spit out blood multiple times.
Typical Xianxia for you.
But oh, and I didn't mention. Yes. I didn't. I don't remember if I mentioned this, but like I said to you, I think offline that the second male lead, like I was like his eyes are so pretty. Like I was like they're so sparkly. It's like they put like extra lights on them, or
He's doe-eyed. He has like doe eyes.
yeah. Anyways, that's just a side comment on his looks, but yeah, I like him more in this than in when he was in Are You the One? Like for sure, his acting improved a lot since that last drama I saw him in.
Yeah, we said he's more lively, and part of it might be the character, but it's even then, not everyone can make it work.
Yes.
Any other characters now that we talked about the four main actors? And did I think I mentioned this to you offline. I thought this was an interesting tidbit. So the actors have a chat group on WeChat, and they said that they're called ABCDE. It's because of the names, all of the names, right? Alphabetically, if you put them, Ruipeng is A, Bai Lu's B, C is Chong Zhao, so his real name is Chen Huasen, and then Dai Luwa is the girl who plays Ling or Bai Xi. So A, B, C, D. And I was like, who's E? Like, I can't figure out who E is. So if you ever look this up and you'd be like, who's E? Let me know. I don't know.
Yeah, who's E? Yeah. One of the characters that I actually ended up liking, but was short-lived in the drama was the brother,
Xifeng?
Fan Yue's brother,
Yes.
the wheelchair guy.
That arc was good in my mind.
Yes. I really actually was sad when he died. I was like, because again, they all start unassuming, right? But I think he could have been just like a throwaway villain sidekick, and that would have been the end of it. But they built. I mean, it's kind of funny because you alluded this in the first pod that the evil villain's not as smart as you think, which is he screwed up because so there was a is it called divination, where he asked the old turtle master like about like these kids, and he told him, you need one from the Bai family, one from the Bao Zhe clan, and then the third one he lied and said that child hasn't been born yet. So basically they were like the incarnations of the three deities that we meet later on at the very end. And so he grabbed the wrong brother from the Bai Zhe clan. He grabbed the wrong sister from the Bai family. I'm messing up the names. But basically, he had the wrong brother and sister. So it was kind of funny because when you first watch it, you don't realize that they're their siblings, right? You just think, oh, they're just so faithful, and they'll do all kinds of evil stuff for him. Actually, it reminded me a lot of Snowy Night too, like where that evil villain was kidnapping children, remember? And then raise them and then pit them against each other. It's like the same thing, similar.
But the nickname for the bad guy is
the brother, like
a people trafficker or child kidnapper. Just like Steambound Boy. Yeah, there's also funny nicknames, okay? So random tangent, hold the thought.
Yeah.
Defeng's was like green tea. You know what green tea means, right? In Chinese slang. Yeah, like they're manipulative, they have ulterior motives because obviously he has a weird thing about his brother, right? You can tell. It was interesting. People are like, it's kind of weirdly sexy when the two of them are together because he's obviously obsessed with Fan Yue, right? And it's like a love-hate relationship because he's only one of the few characters who has a suckier life path than Fan Yue, if you think about it. Remember I said this? I said Fan Yue's life is pretty sucky. And so is Bai Shuo's, if you think about what happened to them and their families, right? But Xifeng's is even worse, right? Because he basically was a substitute for Fan Yue's even worse fate. So So that's why he's called Green Teak, because every time he was in frame, he was like trying to manipulate his brother into being sympathetic to him, right, and control the situation. And he was jealous in some ways of his really sister-in-law, if you think about it, right? He was very possessive.
Yes.
It's kind of like a, if I can't have him, you can't either type of dynamic, which was very interesting. So yes, that was an interesting nickname for him. He's Green Tea. The bad guy was people trafficker, and Fan Yue's name was, so in Chinese his name is Ji Yao Wang, which is the Polar Region Demon King. All the fans call him Ji Yu Yao Wang, meaning it sounds the same in Chinese, but the words are different. It means like extreme narrow waist demon king. Because his waist is like, if you look at Ruipeng, he's not wearing those really loose robes. He has like a swimmer's body, kind of. So I thought that, I was like, where do people come up with these names?
That's funny.
Anyways, so Qifeng, back to Qifeng. So yeah, I thought his character. So this guy was also in My Journey to You as a secondary character. A lot of people, right? We said there's a lot of actor spotting. I liked his character here. He had more range. So his character in My Journey to You was interesting. He died in that one, pretty tragically, but it was like out of sacrifice to kind of fight the bad guys. So he kind of blew himself up. Yeah. So maybe this actor just specializes in these kind of sympathetic, tragic characters. He has a face for that.
He does have a face for that, but he doesn't give me the ick. Do you know what I mean? Like some people have the face for that, and they kind of ick you out, and you're like, you're never gonna progress. But I can see him if he is given opportunity to like play like a more heroic, sort of that type of likable character versus the redeemed villain. So I was like, okay, I thought his character was interesting. Just like his backstory was so sad, and you can really understand why he did what he did. But he also had this nobleness to him, where he wanted to get revenge for the clan. Because remember, he went back and he guarded the clan after they were buried, and then he got attacked by the stone guy. And that's how he lost his legs. Like, you thought he got crippled by the evil guy, but no, it was actually the stone guy that did it. So that was an interesting twist. Like, you thought like something bad happened to him when he was, in the not the demon realm, but wherever he was with the evil guy.
When that arc was playing live, people were like really like conflicted and debating, arguing over whether Fan Yue did the right thing by his brother and his people versus his friends. And people are like, you can't judge him for that, because it's not a black and white situation. That is another prime example of there's no easy choice here.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, there were so many wrongs already wrapped together in the series of unfortunate events, right? And there could have been just an endless cycle of revenge. And he chose not to go there. But then there were actually viewers who were like, no, then he sucks as a person. We're like, what? What kind of what moral like standards do you have, right? Like,
well, I'm not gonna say what's right or wrong, but I would say that the way they made it so hard to decide is because the stone guy, which was who was very faithful to Fan Yue, like he really did commit the act. It's not like a clansman did it or a family member. Like he actually did do that. He just doesn't remember because he was in a state of frenzy. And he has no memory of it happening. And you could argue like it does. If you were to go to court of law today, just because you don't remember you committing the crime doesn't mean you didn't do the crime. So you should still get punished for committing the crime, right? So I would say that so that's where it is, right? Like and Fan Yue doesn't know him as that bad character. He knows him as like my friend, and he's
his brother. Yeah, his brotherhood brother. And then in his village, I mean, the Stone Clan did eat the bones of Fan Yue's Bai Shuo. That's pretty serious, especially in Asian culture, right? Like, you don't just go and desecrate the bodies, but they have to survive. So you can see it from both sides, right? Like, who's really in the right?
Yes.
So okay. So enough about Qifeng. Since you talked about Qifeng, I'll say I like a lot of the side characters. It's really hard to pick a favorite, but one I think it was worth mentioning, again, not on screen long enough, but is Mu Jiu, the Fox clan scion. Right, he went way too early, and I told you last time at the first pod that you weren't there yet at the time. It was episode 20-ish, right, or something, when he was gonna die, right? Because he never should have existed. That was really
Yes.
touching. I cried a few times. One was that was like when the dad died, I didn't really cry, but it was sad. When Wu Zhou died, I actually cried because I didn't think I would feel that way because his romance with Tianhua seems to come out of nowhere. It was a one-sided crush. But by the time he had to leave, and the way she reacted, I bought it. I'm a sucker, right, for that kind of romance. And the way he couldn't hug her for one more time was really sad, right?
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
of course, then the next minute, all you see is like the little tail doll, a fur doll that he made, and people were like, "Oh, can I buy that? Are they gonna make a doll?" It's so cute.
I was thinking that. I was like, is this on Taobao?
Someone will
I bet
make
there are
it.
people.
But it was so
that
sad, right?
doll.
Like basically all these great characters died and got reduced into a doll. Changsan, when he died, became a stone, a pebble, right? And they're just carrying like a doll and a pebble around. I'm like, this is kind of ridiculous if you think about it, but it's kind of poignant, right? So yeah, so when Mujo died, I was sad because for the little time he was on screen, he entertained me a lot. He was funny, not in like a annoying, like how sometimes they can go comic character. You first thought he was just supposed to be comic relief, right?
Yeah.
And it turned out he was way more than just comic relief. But while he was just comic relief, he did delight me. I thought he was very cute, like being the boyish kid who has like a crush on Tianhua. And then when he made the tough choices and sacrificed himself, you believe that he's actually a much more mature guy at heart. Like he wasn't just puppy love with Tianhua.
So, can you remind me, because I don't remember, when I watched that arc, like you know how they go back in time. So the baby was never born. Initially in this timeline, there was no baby because the mom, Ling Long, died, but while pregnant. And when they went back, in time, or at least when they went into the resentment, whatever they called it, to view it happen, Fan Yue saved the baby, right? I think that's what was implied. Fan Yue. So then when you come back to present day, you have that Fox clan descendant, but his identity was hidden by his aunt because she was protecting him. So I'm like, did he exist before they went back in time, or
yeah, they didn't explain. I think he did. I don't know how you explain any of this away. You do not think about the logic. I think it's the way I would think about it is like if I watch enough like Star Trek and Doctor Who, where time continuum is like a loop, right? So if something's gonna happen in the future, it therefore is now real. So I think he was always meant to exist because of what was going to happen in the illusion realm. And therefore he existed already before they went into the illusion realm. That's how my mind reconciles that. I wouldn't go any further than that.
Okay. Yeah. I think for me that was probably the only loose end I could not like explain away. Like everything else, like I said, they threw in little red herrings, and you're like, oh, that ties back to something else that they reveal later. This was the only one where I was like, well, did he exist? Because until Fan Yue saved the baby in utero or post, his mom's passing, I didn't know how he would exist, or he would have a different identity and not actually be the child. But
yeah, it was very Star Trek and Doctor Who mixed in. We needed a Time Lord to go explain that one for us, but we didn't have one, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so let's see what else do we want to. There's so many things we could talk about. I do actually want to talk about the ending, and then we can talk about the rating for the show. Because my big thing is like, did it land well? And I'll have to say this: the ending changed the tone of the entire show for me.
Yeah.
Because of the way they ended. But it was not a letdown. It just felt everything went before it was like a different type of show, if that makes sense. it devolved a little bit into ridiculous Xianxia land tropes at the very end, where the constant like A, they literally went to outer space, and then B, it was like continuous like let's settle our scores from 60,000 years ago, and let's everyone sacrifice themselves and die, right, and then reincarnate or come back alive. So that was a little bit like, oh no, they're going that way, but at least they did it in a short span of time versus 40 episodes, right? I wish we had seen more of the old Fan Yue and Bai Shuo at the end. What I did like about the way they ended, though, was they actually gave you a complete, well-explained happy ending. Was it a good explanation in the sense of, like, we had to go through all that to get to this happy ending? Not necessarily, right? Because, like, you're like, oh my god, heaven's will, you suck, right? This is all her fault. She started this whole shit show for everyone, really, right? And all she does is, like, I apologize, I was wrong.
Right,
like, oh, really? Really? But at least they spent the time to wrap it up, versus a lot of Xianxias where it feels like you just tacked on a random happy ending, or just a random ending, and you never explained how that ending was supposed to be interpreted. They didn't give you that wiggle room. They told you exactly what was happening. They're like, everything that happened for a reason. Now we're gonna return the people you love back to you, starting with Fan Yue, and that's why he's back. So I was like, thank God they didn't just do a Dongfang Qing Cang came out of nowhere for 2 seconds and kisses Xiaolanhua ending, right? So I'm like, I'm happy because you ended it properly.
Or even Starry Love.
Oh my God, that was yes, Starry Love.
That was even worse. That was worse because they didn't even. Wasn't it like from afar, like like they didn't even talk or.
No, the flowers open. The flowers open. You don't see the girls.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of more years in fertilization of the flowers before they come back.
Yeah, so I would agree with you. Okay, so I would say, okay, so when you start the story, you think there's 5 arcs because there's 5 stones, but they actually reveal with the 6th arc, which was the god realm, the deity realm, they reveal there's a 6th contemplation, which
Grand
was love. Right, because the previous because the previous contemplations, I don't think we mentioned what they were. Is kindness,
greed, hate.
Killing, greed, hate.
Oh my gosh.
And what was the 5th one? That was the Fox Clan, the 3rd arc.
It was love.
I can't remember.
But it's not big love. Like, it's not grand love? It's like, it's just love.
It's not grand love. Okay, maybe. But like then they they put that out there, right? You're like, oh, okay. So I would say when I watched it, I think because since the first episode they prepared you that there are gods, right? They say, oh, people they don't exist, but they're just stories. I think by the time you get to the point where they show you the gods, I was mentally prepared to see these characters play out. I think the pacing was a little rushed because, like you said, they jam-packed the whole storyline of what happened in like 2 to 3 episodes, and again forecast it into the sky like a projection movie theater, and you're like watching it the way Bai Shuo is watching it, right? Like that's how she's learning about her past incarnation. But I was okay with it. I think otherwise you don't know, there's no way to tie the story up, right? Like, because that's the whole reason this started, right? The little snake that survived.
Oh, the snake. By the way, even he was redeemable in the sense that he did all of this really just because he wanted his master back.
Yes, and he self-sacrificed. Yeah.
Everything he did was actually kind of a selfless, which I was surprised. So really, he's not the most evil character. The 2 most evil characters are actually the master, Chong Zhao's master, and the flower.
Yes. He's the most evil. Yes. He is the most evil.
Yes.
Jin Yao, whatever his name is. Because okay, we didn't even talk about it, and I wasn't going to talk about him, but since you brought him up, like he is the most selfish a-hole ever, because he was he let his people die to feed his own like powers, and to feed that woman, that goddess's powers, the lotus plant flower girl, and like he was not even apologetic to the end. Before he died, he was like, I did it just for you guys, and there's nothing wrong with what I did. Like, he didn't care. He he went evil, and he did it under the facade of goodness, which is even worse, right? At least other people, if you're bad or evil, you're like, you know what, I'm evil, and I take credit for that, or I own up to it. Like, this guy is like a coward. He would never show that side because his evilness is even more insidious than the other evil people.
Yes, sorry. I sidetracked us because we were trying to talk about, but I thought that was important tangent to mention for those two evil characters. So back to the finale and the you were ready for the God arc, so you felt rushed, but
yes, I was ready for the God arc. I felt rushed, and then the epilogue. I'll talk about the epilogue after you talk about the ending, and then yeah.
I already talked about my sentiments. I like that they properly ended it. So then it's a natural segue to the extra episode. In case people didn't know, there's an extra episode. And this is a proper extra episode, which I think they filmed it 6 months after. So they kind of look a little bit different. Yeah, it's just the two of them.
Oh.
Which I'm glad, because can you imagine if the show just ended the way in show? It's still a proper ending, but I almost feel like Fan Yue and Bai Shuo didn't get their due. Like, you wanted to see them happy again, and it was nice to see them in the extra, the epilogue episode. In there, I think I didn't say. I feel like they were living in the same place that Rongxian and Ling Long were. That village, not village. But it looks similar.
I wasn't.
Well, either way, it looks like the place in the Starry Love that they hid away, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's where they got married. That's where they got married
so
too.
I like that because all those like unintentional tiebacks, right, made it even extra for me, extra special, because that's what you wanted to see in the Starry Love. Like, if that show ended there, that would have been the perfect ending. I like that they got married and dressed up in proper wedding clothes, and they were really beautiful, the wedding robes. I like that they kind of really said proper vows to each other. And that they did talk about kind of the other characters coming back to life. Now, the way it's set in Chinese, you could interpret it as they're already back, right? They're just not here physically. Or you could interpret it as they will be back. Do you want to wait for them, right? At first, I thought, oh, they're back. They just didn't get the actors. But then now, the more I think about it, the way the conversation transpired, I don't think they're all alive yet. Because the way Heaven's Will said this was all the people who died who were, good people, right, will come back eventually in one way or another, right, through kind of reincarnation or such. So I think it would take a few hundred years, right? And they are both now gods, right? Because Fan Yue's body is the god body that the guy Jing Yuan left him, and Bai Shuo's is now she's a goddess. Yeah,
because the heaven gave it to her, right?
The six like grand love, whatever.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, because I remember when after she spoke to heaven, and then she got the new mark on her forehead. So I thought that was when she became a goddess, or immortalized goddess.
So I like that they had that long wedding moment and said their vows, and Fan Yue had his kind of Fan Yue moment, which is he kind of exhibited one last time his kind of devotion to her, right? In a way. So that was very nice. I like that ending. It wasn't just like random slapped on ending with no closure.
I would say that the epilogue basically made it concrete in my mind that this is schmaltz, and sticking to schmaltzy, because I was like, I would agree it's very sweet, but I don't know, I'm like, it's almost like too saccharine, like just a smidge too saccharine, because I would say that but I don't mean that in a critical way or in a negative way. I think it's just you don't see it often in any of these Chinese dramas where you have healthy relationships where they actually communicate well, communicate honestly, and communicate openly, right? Like in a very candid way where it's like they themselves are not cringing over delivery of these words. Like this
is like couple goals. Like I said, you watch the show because you're like, oh, couple goals, man. I don't want to be them, like them.
Yeah. Yeah, like you want to know you have a partner who's that supportive of you, who would never waver, in their feelings, who and even like, when they were in the Bodhi Village and there was a little bit of like a jealousy thing happening, right? Where Bai Shuo was like she's being told like he was in love with the Lotus girl 60,000 years ago, not knowing that she was being tricked or lied to. And he was quick to be like, there's nothing between us, like I don't have any feelings for her, I'm with you, like, and I think they carry that through all the way through, like
There's
there's
always been
never
candor.
this moment where that's used. Yeah, like it's not used as a trope to create conflict or angst. If anything, it cements the relationship further because they are so open with one another to quickly comfort each other, or like to make sure where I stand. I think the ending kind of just to me summarizes that relationship.
But the thing is, he's always the one saying that. Have you noticed that? Like it's almost like he's the one who gave up more for her. Like he wants her more because she's a stronger character at the end of the day, right? From a personality perspective.
Yes.
But I think it works because then every time he died, oh my god, episode 34, I know you were rushing through it trying to get to the end. I was so sad when Fan Yue died because of the way he died. Like he died basically on the happiest day of his life, right? And it was so because like they all thought he was fine, and then he was like, remember he like he spat out all that gulp of blood, like you said, there's a lot of blood, and he's like, oh, I'm not gonna make it, basically, and then he died in her arms, right? Yeah. And that was very sad.
Yes.
And I just thought about like because he was always so candid with her, how much he supported her and loved her and will always be there for her when he does die, it hurt more. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think also the words he used to kind of comfort her at the end was so sad. I mean, sweet and sad because he's like, "Oh, go to this place for the like." At first, there's no context, right? He's like, "Oh, you should go here, go there." Like he names like 3 or 4 places, right? And then she goes, "Oh yeah, it'll take me 10 years to go to each of these places, like to reach." And like some of these.
And she did that at the end.
Yes, she did say she went to all of them, but like the.
So you knew a lot of time had passed.
But you also knew at that time she was immortal. So basically, he's saying like, but by the time you're done seeing all these places, you'll be old and near the end of your life, and like it's like a weird way to comfort someone. But I was like, oh my god, it's so heartbreaking, right? Like to know he's worried about her. So he's like, oh, like you can fill your mind and your energy to do all these things, and you won't worry or be sad.
He said it again the second time he sacrificed himself. In short, remember? He's like, remember the things I said to you on the mountaintop? And she's like, yes. She's like, damn it, why'd you gotta do this to me? Like, how could you? I mean, I was pretty mad, right? Because I can see why she was mad. She's like, how could you put me in this situation or position? But yes, I also felt bad for him because when he said all those things about all these places I haven't been, it made you remember that he had a really sucky life. He's only 25. Remember I said this? He's a very young demon king. Yes. He's only 25, and his whole life has been bent on surviving and getting revenge before he dies. Like, he had no time to go do anything for himself. And the one time he finds something he wants for himself, which is Bai Shuo, he's gonna die.
Yeah.
So, anyways, like the ending.
So that's why you feel like it's good that they got the happy ending.
Yes, I was super happy.
And not like
that it was just like, thank God. I don't care how you did it. I don't care how ridiculous of a stretch it is. I'm glad he's black. I'm glad that there is no doubt that this is a real coming back, not some like I dreamt this, like type of deal. You know how a lot of shows when they have these tacked on endings where it's like random happy ending, you're like, oh, that was just a figment of their imagination. It's not real. Right? There's no doubt that this is real, so thank God.
Yes.
Anyway, so ratings. Before we get to ratings, I do want to make a very short plug for the OST because I know you didn't have a chance to enjoy. There's like 7 or 8 songs. I think the 3. I really like the duet they did. The 2 leads.
Oh, I think I saw a video on YouTube. But I didn't click on it. I think
it comes on a lot when they're having sweet moments. So you'll have to.
I didn't realize.
And then
I have to go back.
The intro song is the Sa Ting Ting one, which everyone's just like, please stop singing, because every time she sings, someone's about to die, right? And they're like, well, no wonder she's the cameo who plays Heaven's Will, right? And she's like, no wonder she's Heaven's Will. Of course, every time she opens her mouth, everyone's gonna die. It's really funny.
Wait, you said you told me I'm going off. You said there was a nickname for the snake guy and the lotus flower on social
in
media.
that arc in the Bodhi Village, a lot of people found it very distasteful to have a love triangle, right? Fatal Attraction, right? Where the girl got her hooks in him. So a lot of people didn't like that. They're like telling Luan Zhu, the lotus spirit, they're like, oh, come on, you know, he's not your true love. Your true CP is Zheng Yu, the snake guy, you know. And because of their name, like her name is Luan Zhu and his is Zheng Yu or something like that, right? They gave him the CP name of Zhenzhu Naicha, so boba tea. And they're like, that's your true CP, go. You guys, and they were like put pictures of them side by side. I thought that was hilarious. Like the things people do to get rid of, like, you know. Yeah. Well, you know, people also said
unlikable.
People also said like they're like, oh, you know, Jing Yuan when he came on, right? Ruipeng's last incarnation of the god. They're like, oh, the minute Jing Yuan the god comes on, like it's like Fan Yue 白演了30集, which is like Fan Yue wasted his time for the first 30 plus episodes, basically, because everyone forgot who Fan Yue was, because they're like they like the god version of him more. I'm actually not sure. I really like the god version, but I like Fan Yue probably more just because he's the heart of the show for Bai Shuo, right? The show would not be the same without the two of them at the anchor, at the heart of it.
Yes. It is like two different characters. For sure. I wouldn't think that they were similar. They're not similar in that sense. Yeah, like I would consider them as two separate characters.
Do you have a favorite version?
I mean, I think Fan Yue is more reliable, like in a mature way. But I think Jing Yuan is more fun. Yes. Like I feel like that in my youth, I would have liked his energy more.
So boyfriend material versus husband material.
Yeah, or he's adorable, but like in a way where you feel like you're being admired. You know what I'm saying? Like that's something.
Oh, I mean, he's a true romantic.
Woman.
He goes all out.
Yeah. So I feel like that would have charmed me more than the more serious. But like, yeah, again, it's a maturity level, right? They're just different. They're just very different. Which one would you prefer?
Fan Yue and Mu Mu.
Yeah. Oh, you like Mu Mu. See, that's the one you really like.
No.
Which is even more...
I like Fan Yue, actually, because remember, Mu Mu is Fan Yue. I mean, he doesn't like that, right? Remember, even at the end, Jing Yuan brings him back, and Fan Yue is like, oh, why are you going to mention that guy? He's like, that he is you.
Yeah. That's funny. I think Mu Mu is Fan Yue without the heartbreak if he had not suffered. Yes. Yeah. Like had he grown up without the trauma, that is Mu Mu. Like Fan Yue would just been Mu Mu grown up. You know. That's my take on it.
Yes, well, that's what Bai Shuo said, right? She's like, I never thought of you as two different people. You're the same. He's like, we're not the same. Stop mentioning that idiot. Okay, social ratings.
Yeah.
I'll go first, I guess, since I love the show so much. So even though I said this is my favorite now, Xianxia, I'm going to give it 2 ratings, okay? Objectively, it's not a perfect show, right? There are many flaws with it, I think. It's very tropey, but it makes it work. I would give it an 8.5 objectively. However, sentimentally or subjectively, because I enjoyed it so much, I give it a 9.6. And I would have given it a 9.8, but I'm deducting 0.2 points for its kind of the typical Xianxia repetitiveness and kind of the hurriedness of the last arc.
Okay. Overall, I give it an 8.6. I think I really enjoy the characters. I don't know if it's rewatchable for me. I don't know.
I think a lot of it is rewatchable in snippets. Like,
yes.
I mean, look, I can just stare at, like, you know, Ruipeng all day long too. Like people are just like, there are people who are like, oh, you have to
Yes.
watch the show 3 times. First 2 times you're just looking at his face. It's very distracting. And then you're like, oh, I gotta watch it for the plot. So you go back and watch it for the plot. But anyways, yes.
Yeah. No, I think there are many clips and many scenes where I would enjoy rewatching. I think overall, story-wise, because it is a very heavy story. It's not
No, it's like
like
I
a
said.
light.
I said it's a happy-go-lucky tragedy.
Yeah, so I think that's how I'm basing it on. Like, if I would turn it on and rewatch it from beginning to end, it's probably not as likely. But I think for the journey, in terms of the journey from watching it the first time, I enjoyed all the surprises they put out and all the Easter eggs and all the tying up of the loose ends and all the reveals. I thought everything was done very well, and even down to the sister being the bow. Like, even though I kind of saw it coming, like I still thought, oh, that's creative actually, because everyone's looking for it. Like they're literally like, is it under the ocean? Is it in the mountains? Like they're thinking it's an object, and the whole time it was like close to her and always there to keep her safe.
Yes.
So I thought that was actually quite clever of whoever came up with that. So yeah, 8.6.
Novel to see if the novel story is anything like this. So I'll let you know once I read it.
Yeah.
Because the online version...
Yeah, this is one of the few where... You said it wasn't finished, or it was finished?
Online. It's kind of like the Starry Love wasn't finished, and then when the show came out, they quietly published like a whole novel with the ending tacked on.
It's always weird when they do that, because how much of it is from the original author?
Oh, the novel's different from the show. So I know that for a fact was the Starry Love. Like, it's still happy ending, but the way it ends is different.
Oh. Okay, now I'm curious. Yeah.
Yeah, in the novel of the Starry Love, 少年有情 sacrifices himself. He dies, not the girls. Unlike the show. And then he comes back. And then I think she has to sacrifice. I didn't finish reading, actually. That's bad of me, because it's a longer book. There's 3 volumes. And then eventually there's a happy ending for both pairs. With this one, we'll see how, if I get around to reading the whole book, I'll let you know.
Okay.
And maybe a separate side pod just to compare show notes to novel. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, oh wow, we talked a lot about this, but I'm glad that we had a chance to talk about it, because now like I said, this has revitalized my interest in watching C-dramas, because I was in a slump for a while, right? The last few shows, it was like, oh my god, this is same old. And again, this is not exactly like New Frontier, but yet there's something very refreshing about this show that made me want to look forward now. And it made me discover a whole new crop of young actors, right? That I was not necessarily keeping an eye on. So I'm like, oh, there's hope now. If these people keep making new shows, I will watch it. Now, it all depends on the script and execution and production too, but I have something to look forward to. So, very excited.
I agree. Yeah. Same here.
All right. Well, hopefully next time we talk about a show, it'll be something interesting as well.
All right. Talk to you later.